Yeah, thank you again for inviting me to talk on the very broad subject doing research in Germany, understanding the German research landscape. So I hope you understand this will just be a glimpse. I have some information, follow up. I can also share the slides with the organizing team. Yeah, that's me. And here you can see also a few of our online offers. So feel free to scan the QR code and check out what we have on our website and also on social media to offer for researchers, PhDs and postdocs mainly. Okay. This is what I want to do with you today. A brief and very quick overview, and then talk a little bit about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the German academic system, and guide you a little bit through academic career tracks, and leave you with some tips and information to follow up if you want to learn more. So when we as GSO organized a first online conference called To Be Honest, Real Career Talk for Researchers in 2022, we asked the participants what comes to their mind when they first think about German or research system in Germany. And those were some of the reactions we got. So the research system as a maze was one of the answers. And I'd like to bring a little light into this maze for you now. So let's look at the research institutions in Germany for a start. So apart from the over 400 universities and universities of applied sciences, you will also find in Germany research institutions on the federal level. Usually they are affiliated to a ministry, plus research institutions on the level of the 16 states, the so-called Bundesländer. They are often also affiliated to a ministry. In addition to that, there's something called extra or non-university research institutions. You might have heard the names: Max Planck Society, Helmholtz, Leibniz, and Fraunhofer. So they each have a number of research institutes throughout the country, some in bigger cities, some in smaller towns, focusing on specialized research areas, often interdisciplinary. For instance, evolutionary biology or laser technology or sustainability or wildlife research, just to name a few. And last but not least, you will also find a lot of research institutions affiliated with private companies, big companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, and they are mainly providing industrial research. Now, all those institutions offer and also advertise PhD and postdocs positions, for instance. So it is worthwhile, if you are interested in a PhD or a postdoc in Germany, to check if there are non-university research institutions, federal or state level research institutions in your field, and learn more about their mission, their purpose, and what they have to offer. It's some of those institutions focus very much on basic research. You can see that in this graph, such as the Max Planck Institutes, for instance, while others, such as Fraunhofer especially, focus on applied research. Again, the state level institutions focus more on applied, with the federal institutions more on basic research. So that's important to understand, I would say, as is also as it is interesting to look at, when you're researching those institutions, where does their funding come from? So because I think it's to follow the money is always an interesting question, and it will tell you more about the purpose of this specific institution that you are interested in, about their stakeholders, the research cycles. So in industry, it will be faster than maybe as with a federal level research institution. And it will also tell you more about what you will work for as a researcher. Now, research needs funding, a lot of funding, in many cases. And where does the funding come from in Germany? Again, it's a pretty diverse landscape and hard to explain in detail in such a short time. Again, you have in Germany funding from the federal and state level. Those are often large funding programs that are spanning or have a duration up to several years and focusing on specific areas. You have the German Research Foundation on the national level, of course, the European Union with big programs like Horizons 2020. But you will also find a very diverse landscape of private or public foundations who are, for instance, focusing on specific research areas or funding specific groups. So be it PhD students or postdocs or junior professors, or who have a specific agenda. For instance, there are also foundations who are close to political parties and trying to advance their political agenda. In addition, you also have a lot of industry-funded research. And in fact, it's close to 2/3 of the annual budget for research in Germany that comes from the private sector, so from companies from the industry. And that might also be interesting to you. Probably many of you have heard of the German Academic Exchange Service, but there's also the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung. And those two are, I would say, the biggest organizations offering funding programs for internationals wishing to come to Germany. And my tip for you, if you are planning to apply for research funding in Germany, then the first step is, I would say, to register for the newsletters of those organizations, or maybe your own institution, university, or research institute in Germany also has a research support office. They come under different names. But they are also sometimes good to ask, what kind of funding lines are upcoming in my field of research, or sometimes they have their own newsletter where they spread the word on new calls and can maybe also support you in your grant applications. Now, the good, the bad, and the ugly about the German research system. Let's start with the good. So in recent years, there have been quite a number of studies among international researchers in Germany, and here you can see two impressions that were quite positive. So quality of life, the research facilities, funding opportunities, and opportunities to advance your own research. Some people generally have also the feeling that, okay, things are developing and changing partly for the better in the German research system. And I would say this is also thanks to initiatives of students, doctoral students, and postdocs themselves. And maybe also thanks to advocacy of science management and support facilities within the research institutions, such as graduate schools, international offices, career and welcome centers, or research support offices. Because I remember when I was studying, like in the beginning of the 2000s, I can't remember that there was something like a welcome center for international researchers. International offices, yes, but specifically career or welcome centers, that's, I would say, development of maybe the last 15 years, something, maybe a little bit longer. But of course, there are also many systemic problems. And those who are doing research in Germany know about this probably. So, for instance, what we got as a feedback during our own virtual conference in 2022 is that specifically, women trying to advance their academic career face a lot of difficulties, or persons of color. And the general term at the time was, okay, the glass ceiling is still there and challenging. But I also want to give you a few ideas on maybe how to overcome this, at least on the individual level, and thereby maybe also stimulate more systemic change. So many of you might already have heard the terrible long-term Wissenschaftszeitvertragsgesetz, so the law for contracts in the academic system, which has been causing a lot of discussions again this year. So the problem is still contracts are limited, like permanent contracts are limited. That would allow researchers, to not only build their career, but also maybe at the same time build a family. And this is specifically challenging, I would say, for international researchers, because if you only get like a contract for 1 or 2 years, maybe, then it's really harder to build a future. So the last slide, I would say, focusing on problems before we go to more to solutions. So those are some challenges that especially international researchers in Germany name as the biggest. So while things are changing, I would say also, but German language is still in many institutions the main language. And if you are focused so much on your research and don't have the time to also invest in learning German, then you're definitely facing more difficulties than someone who has a very good level of Germany, just to give one example. Okay, but how what do we do of this now? So here it's a list of problem, but I would encourage you to look at this from a different perspective. If you turn each and every of those bullet points into their opposite, then you will also get an idea, or maybe a little bit of inspiration on what you can do on an individual level to initiate change, positive change. So talking to fellow researchers, not only about problems, but also possible solutions. And a conference like this is a good forum. Also look out for experienced researchers who could guide you. Also, as I understand, one of the goals, aims of the CAPRI conference. And help each other, help the younger researchers coming after you to find their feet. And if you have the chance already with a position in the academic system in Germany and are part, for instance, of hiring processes at your institution, then advocate, if you can, for more diversity. And if you like science communication and teaching, then make yourself visible, be it via social media or by taking part in activities and competitions to get more, not only more attention to that topic, but also to make yourself visible. And try out maybe some time management techniques that might help you to make more room for things that you're also interested in beyond your research. And that's the last advice, and also I think an important one. University life, academia is based a lot on work in working groups, commissions, to facilitate change or developments. So if you have the chance to become part of a commission or working group in your university, that's a chance not only to learn German, but you will learn a lot on how the academic system works and academic staff, such as establishing tenured positions for research or for teaching. So if you are in Germany already, then keep your eyes open for changes in your state, in your Bundesland, or one of the Bundesländer you would like to go. And on job ads for academic positions, to learn and stay up to date about those developments. Now, the job market outside of academia is pretty diverse in Germany, I would say. There are options to continue working close to science and to make use of your skills as a researcher. For instance, in science supporting positions, but also in industry, nonprofit sector, and in the public sector. So again, I would say it's worth looking outside of your bubble as much as you can, outside of your academic bubble. For instance, by speaking to and learning about researchers who have transitioned into other sectors. You can find their stories on social media, in blogs, and also a lot of podcasts recently are out there on PhD career stories transitioning to other sectors. And it might also be a good idea to think, what else am I interested in? What other skills, interests do I have that I could maybe make use of outside of academia if this plan A is not working? So, but if you want to continue along the academic track in Germany, there are basically three pathways to attain the so-called Berufungsfähigkeit, so eligibility for a professorship. And basically, starting with your postdoc, you are expected to build your academic career portfolio and put special emphasis on gaining not only research, but also teaching experiences. And depending on where you work, this might be easier, or sometimes you have to put a little bit more effort into that. So which of the following three pathways might be important for you is depending very much on your own discipline, on your field, and what's expected there. So again, talking to other researchers who are already one career step ahead of you is a good idea to understand better which of these pathways might be important to you for your academic career. So the first one is the habilitation. It's basically you prove your ability to teach in an academic subject. And it's the second book that many researchers are writing after their PhD thesis. Now, this is not a prerequisite in all disciplines. It's still pretty much important in the humanities and social science, but not so much in the natural sciences. And if you read job ads for professorships, for instance, you will also always or often find that you don't have to have a habilitation, but you can have an equivalent to that. Now, since this goes too much into detail, if you have more questions on that, write me an email, and I'm happy to explain more about it. The second important or the second possible pathway is the junior professorship. So we have like the W1, W2, and W3 professors, and W1 is the junior professor. So here it's already a position where you gain leadership experience, and it's the administrative work of managing your team and the research projects is becoming bigger. You don't have to write a rehabilitation, and you have up to 6 years with a positive evaluation to then, for instance, through a tenure track option, go to move to permanent professorship. And last but not least, the junior research groups. Again, giving researchers, younger researchers, the opportunity to gain leadership experience and administrative work experience. If you go to our website, to the GSO website, we have a couple of good articles explaining better and in detail what those research groups are about, what kind of programs there are to apply for, and what's important to consider when you are applying. Now, one of those things, as you can see here on the slide, is academic age. And now what's that? I can demonstrate you when we look in the next slide at some of the junior research group programs that there are in Germany and on a European level. So those are some, as you can see, again, states, federal, private foundations, non-university research institutions, they all basically have their own junior research group programs. Now, most of them have an age limit until when you can apply. And this is referring to the academic age, meaning how many years after your PhD. So as you can see here, 6 years after your PhD, it already starts getting pretty tight, because everything you see on the up more than 6 years, like ERC starting grants, is becoming more and more competitive, and you have to have a pretty high level of academic experience already. So what I want to exemplify with this is basically with your postdoc starts your, at the latest, your strategic career planning in academia. And the better you know what your options are and what the next step should be, the better you are prepared. So the clock of your academic age starts ticking after your PhD. And maybe one additional word for those of you, for instance, who have a family, children, or who have been out of academia for a while. It's very important that in your academic CV in Germany, you show how much time you have actually spent in academia and how much time you haven't, because all this will be counted into your academic age, basically. So if you took time off, for instance, to raise your child, put it in your academic CV as Elternzeit, because this part should not be counted within your academic age. Now, you probably know, well, since you all were all in research, you know about the hard currencies in academia. Scientific reputation, visibility, publications, grants, etc. But there are also, in addition to that, some hidden currencies, I would say. So here I'm referring to what is expected of you as a postdoc striving for professorship, but rarely communicated openly or written down anywhere explicitly. So there's no book about how the academic system is working in Germany. But here in the blue bubbles, I want to give you some tips for what can help you actually on your way up or forward on the academic ladder beyond doing your research, such as, for instance, thinking strategically about the next step and planning it, or finding and connecting with mentors and learning how to navigate the academic system and academic politics. So we as GSO, we are offering support on your way with our advisory and coaching services, and also an online conference that I'm telling you about in the end. So I'm quite at the end already. This is, I would say, a good tip on how to learn more about the hidden currency in the academic system, make use of the scientific community and their swarm intelligence itself. So asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but you will find if you ask questions, usually there are a couple of people having clever ideas that might guide you on your personal way of navigating the academic system. So swarm intelligence is not to be underestimated. Now, if you are looking for more information on how doing research in Germany works, there are a couple of good websites, I would say. Pretty new is Make It in Germany. Research in Germany has been there for a long time. So those are the state websites, often a little bit euphemistic, I would say. But there are also a number of other resources that you can use. And if you're interested in, then maybe attending our free online conference in December, to be honest, is a good idea. There you will, similar to CAPIC, have the chance to learn more about the hidden currencies and the unwritten laws of academia in Germany, and to engage in discussions with fellow researchers in kind of a protected forum. So I'm at the end of my presentation. Here's some links to our resources. And I was pretty fast, hopefully not too fast, but I think we have now 15 minutes for questions, which is, I think, often the most important part. So thank you for listening until here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Seffert. That was really an insightful presentation. And yes, we have about 15 minutes for questions and answer, which is, as rightly said, the most interesting part. So if you have questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Also, feel free to raise up your hands and to ask directly using your microphone. So I have a lot of questions, so I can definitely start the conversation right away. My first question would be, you said something. I would read exactly the statement. You said, the better you know your steps, the better you are prepared. I don't know if you remember when you said this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember.
Okay. So then when you said this, what came into my mind is that, but just one negative grant application or fellowship can set you back. So basically, you could know your steps, but just with one application, everything could just change, and basically your career trajectory would just change overall like that. So do you agree to this, or do you think there are ways we can tackle this kind of setbacks that might occur?
Yes, I think on that slide, I also had a blue bubble that said find ways to deal with setbacks and to deal with rejection and improve resilience. Now, with the grant applications that are, of course, a very important part, and they can change the career trajectory, but it's also a very common phenomenon in academia that your grant application gets rejected. So just try out asking the next 5 to 10 professors that you're meeting, maybe even Professor Okolo, how many of his grant applications have been rejected. With a grant approval rate of 2 to 5% or sometimes 10%, of course, people will get rejected. But many of those people try again or have another idea on how they could, for instance, reframe or reuse their grant application. So yes, indeed, I mean, it's not easy. No one likes to be rejected. It gets very personal, or it feels very personal oftentimes. But I think there are ways to, for the prepared mind, I would say, it's not necessary that you have to put up everything on one horse, so to say, but look out for other options that you have. And while networking and talking to people, you have a greater chance also to learn about other options.
Yeah, thanks a lot, for that insights again. So we can take questions from the audience. And once again, if you can, feel free to put on your camera, at least while you're asking the question. You could put it off also later, but that's if you can't. So with that said, I would like to call Tosin Adesanya. Please, the mic is yours. We cannot hear you, so maybe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, yes.
How would you describe the PhD landscape for people in the social sciences in Germany? Because I studied in Germany and I have been here for 3 years. And I have found that there is a bit of, this is like a STEM place. Everything is STEM, STEM, STEM. And for those of us in the social sciences, and pre, during, and post PhD, what would you describe the opportunities as? Do you think it's viable, or I don't know?
Well, I would say, the choice to pursue a PhD and then maybe continue on one hand should be that you like what you're doing, that you like researching and everything that, or most of the things that come with it, like publishing or teaching or applying for grants. So you have to have, this kind of like a fire for your topic, but also for scientific community. And for pursuing a career that sometimes looks not so easy. And yes, it's definitely the case that in Germany, the big money is invested in the STEM sciences, STEM, and not so much in the social sciences. So I would say, from my experience, a larger part of PhD graduates from the humanities and social sciences at some point chooses to leave academia. But there are also, the way you as a social scientist are trained gives you also I would say, more opportunities to find a career outside of academia. Because I mean, depending on your personal skills, but usually social scientists, you are used to writing longer texts. You have to communicate much more, also to different audiences, maybe I would say. So your translational skills are different maybe than from natural sciences, scientists, as to say. And look at me. I did a PhD in Chinese. No one really needs that. But depending on how you develop your other interests, maybe during your PhD or after your PhD. For instance, if you find that you're good at organizing events or bringing people together or advocating for a certain topic, then I would say, as a social scientist, it's even more important to take care of those talents and skills and bring them to life, because that will help you make a career outside of academia if academia is not working. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah, okay.
Thanks a lot for the question. I will just ask one question from the chat box, then we go back to the platform. So a question from Oluwaseun Iyasere. She said, do you mean that it's after 12 years, after PhD, that one can get a faculty position in Germany?
Well, so the law allows for you to have a maximum of 12 years of contracts before you should basically reach the point where you get appointed to permanent professorship. Now, that in many cases is not very realistic. If you look at the overall statistics, only 1 out of 10 PhD graduates in Germany actually gets to a professorship. So the number of PhD students is big and the number of professorships is relatively small. So it's not necessarily that after 12 years you will get promoted to a permanent faculty position. No, that's one of the problems, that you have quite a number of postdocs who have reached the end of the 12 years and did not yet secure a professorship. But before that, some of those also never think of a plan B. And then if you only start doing this at the end of your 12 years, then it's a challenge because there are not so many faculty positions. And oftentimes I have to say, you know, PIs, professors, they don't necessarily, I mean, a lot do, many do, but not all of them have a genuine interest in promoting your career because you are working for them. And that's also very convenient because you're probably good at it. So, you know, what I want to say is that do everything you can to get to a faculty position, even before the 12 years. But if you feel that you're not progressing or you feel, okay, something is missing for whatever reason, then also try to keep your eyes open for other positions than faculty positions. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that answer. Just a quick comment. There are some questions in the chat about how do you get PhD funding and all that. So we would also discuss that in the next session. So just stay tuned. And also, if Dr. Seffert has something to say on that, please feel free. And so in between, I would invite Dr. Thaddeus to ask his question.
Thank you very much. Once again, I really thank the presenter and the organizers of this event. Actually, my question just go direct. I've noticed and I've also faced these challenges, which in fact I private chatted the great professor that just talked to us briefly. And the challenge that I think, especially we, the young PhD holders who may have interest in doing or furthering research in Germany are facing is getting a professor in Germany has been a very difficult situation for most of us. I did my PhD under the AAD scholarship funded by Germany. And I've also had opportunity of visiting University of Hamburg. But after that, and not only me, I did my PhD under in-country, in-regional, in my country, Nigeria, in my university, but funded by Germany. But finding a professor that maybe would enable me to, or enable many people, not only me, to have a research opportunity in Germany in order to beat up post 5 years effect after PhD is a difficult situation. So how can such a problem being handled? Is it that professors doesn't read email coming from particular zone, or is it that some emails are being channeled? So I would wish if you can help and give us more idea, more solution on how to tackle such kind of challenges, because some of us really would like to do our postdoctoral fellowship in Germany. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, well, I mean, on one hand, I have quite some empathy for professors and other people in academia who are receiving really a lot of emails and inquiries. Can I do my PhD or my postdoc with you? Maybe some of you even get those emails. I did when I was managing PhD programs in Cottbus. And you know, I personally, and I think it's the same for professors, if I feel the writer who sends me an email is well informed about what I'm doing, what kind of projects he has been reading on something, so he's well informed on my work and has a clear idea on how he could contribute to that, then the chances are bigger that I'm reading that email. Which for the writer such as you makes it, of course, more work because you have to research people in your field that really fit your expertise. And what you shouldn't do is, you know, send out too many emails, the same generic text, because that will decrease your chance of getting a response. So if you make it like short, precise, well-informed, it might work. Or if you, you know someone who knows someone, could also help. And I would say, you know, email is not the only way to contact people. So if you have the chance via online conferences to network and speak to people, or get in contact via social media, or make yourself visible with what your research is about and what your plans are, this might also be a good strategy. There's, I'm afraid, no strategy that, or no tip that I can give you that will work 100%. You just have to try it in different ways. But I also have to say, you know, with I mean, one of the problems I see in Germany is that for many years, the country has been educating a lot of PhDs with and bringing in international talent as well, international PhD students, knowing that it's impossible to accommodate all these people into the German academic market. It's impossible. There are not that many positions. But this fact was, of course, not openly communicated. So I would say the best advice I can give to you is invest in networking, invest in good preparation when you are contacting people, try different channels to contact people, and be very clear about what you want and how you can contribute to the research of the person or the team or the institute that you are writing to.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Dr. Seffert, for the clear answer. And now we've come to the end of this interesting session. However, there are a lot of questions in the chat box. So I think, Dr. Seffert, if you have time, you could also engage some of the questions and answer them while the next session is going on.